The medical plaza of Orbital Station Nexus 7 was always crowded. Thousands of beings from hundreds of different worlds moved through its wide corridors every day. Some came for treatment. Some came to work. Most just passed through on their way to somewhere else. Today, a small blue child was running through the crowd screaming. His name was Telvin. He was only 8 years old, though his species aged differently than humans. His mother had collapsed in their small home 3 levels below the plaza. One moment she was preparing their evening meal. The next moment she was on the floor not moving, her blue skin turning strange colors. Telvin had tried to wake her. He had shaken her shoulders and called her name over and over. Nothing worked. Her chest still moved up and down, so she was breathing, but her eyes stayed closed. Her skin was getting darker, like a bruise spreading across her whole body. He had run to the medical plaza as fast as his small legs could carry him. Now he was here, surrounded by aliens who could help. Someone had to help. Anyone had to help, please. Telvin cried out in the common trade language that everyone on the station understood. My mother won't wake up. Please help! A tall being with gray skin and too many arms walked past him without stopping. Telvin grabbed at one of the arms, but the being pulled away and kept walking. Help! Someone, please. Telvin's voice was getting hoarse from screaming. A group of merchants with crystal-like bodies stood nearby, discussing prices for medical supplies. Telvin ran to them, tears streaming down his small face. My mother is dying. Please, I need a doctor. One of the crystal beings looked down at him. Child, you need to register a medical emergency through the proper channels. Go to Terminal 7 and submit your request, but she won't wake up. Telvin sobbed. The system will process your request in the order it was received, the merchant said, then turned back to his business partners. Telvin felt like his chest was going to explode. Why wasn't anyone listening? Why wasn't anyone moving? He ran to a security officer, a large creature with orange scales and 4 eyes. Officer, please. My mother collapsed. She needs help right now. The officer's voice was flat and bored. Have you submitted an emergency medical request? I don't know how. Please, just send someone. I cannot dispatch medical services without a properly filed request. You must have an adult guardian submit the paperwork along with proof of insurance coverage and payment authorization. My mother is my guardian. She's the one who's hurt. The officer's expression didn't change. Then you need to contact another family member to handle the administrative requirements. We don't have anyone else. It's just us! Telvin was screaming now, his small fists pounding uselessly against the officer's armored leg. I'm sorry, but those are the regulations. The officer stepped around him and continued his patrol. Telvin stood frozen in the middle of the plaza. Beings of every shape and size flowed around him like water around a stone. No one stopped. No one even looked at him for more than a second. His mother was dying and nobody cared. He was about to give up. About to run back home and watch his mother die because he was too small and too powerless to save her. His legs felt weak. His voice was gone. The tears on his face had dried into salty tracks. Then he heard a voice. A strange voice speaking in accented trade language. Hey, kid, what's wrong? Telvin looked up. Standing in front of him was one of the humans. He had seen humans before on the station, but never talked to one. This human was tall and broad with dark hair that stuck up in messy spikes. His skin was tan and covered in sweat and dirt. His clothes were the rough work uniform of a cargo handler. He smelled like machine oil and metal. The human crouched down so his face was level with Telvin's. His eyes were dark brown and looked tired, but they were focused completely on Telvin. Not looking through him or past him like everyone else had. Actually looking at him. What happened? The human asked again. His voice was gentle despite how rough he looked. My mother. Telvin's voice came out as a whisper. She won't wake up. She's at home and she won't wake up and her skin is wrong and nobody will help me. The human's expression changed. Something hard came into his eyes. His jaw tightened. He stood up and held out his hand to Telvin. Take me to her. Right now. Telvin stared at the offered hand. But the medical system. You need to file a request and have insurance and... I don't care about any of that, the human said. His voice was still gentle, but there was iron underneath it. Your mother needs help. That's all that matters. Take me to her. Telvin grabbed the human's hand. It was rough and calloused, much bigger than his own. The human pulled him close and then picked him up completely, settling Telvin on his hip like he weighed nothing. Which way? the human asked. Down. 3 levels down. Section K-47. The human started moving, not walking, running. He pushed through the crowd like they weren't even there. Beings scattered out of his way, some shouting in anger. The human ignored them all. His boots pounded against the metal floor as he ran for the nearest lift. What's your name? The human asked as they waited for the lift doors to open. Telvin. I'm Doyen. Kang Doyen. Don't worry, Telvin. We're going to help your mother. But the insurance, the payment, the rules. Let me worry about that, Doyen said as the lift doors opened. He stepped inside and hit the button for level 3. You just hold on tight. The lift seemed to take forever. Telvin could feel his heart beating so hard it hurt. Doyen kept one strong arm around him, keeping him safe. When the doors finally opened, Telvin pointed down the corridor. This way. Hurry. Doyen ran again, his breathing heavy but steady. Telvin directed him through the maze of corridors until they reached the small door marked K-47. Telvin's home. It wasn't much. Just 2 rooms that his mother worked so hard to pay for each month. Doyen set Telvin down and the boy opened the door with shaking hands. They rushed inside. His mother was still on the floor where Telvin had left her. She hadn't moved. Her blue skin was now purple-gray like the color of old metal. Her chest barely moved. Doyen was on his knees beside her in an instant. His hands moved over her body, checking her pulse, her breathing, her temperature. His face was intense with concentration. The station's medical system, Telvin said desperately. Can't you call them now? Tell them she's really sick. Doyen pulled out a small device from his pocket. He spoke into it quickly. Medical emergency section K-47. Adult female Vorath, unconscious, possible oxygen deprivation. Need immediate assistance. A cold mechanical voice responded from the device. Medical emergency request received. Please provide patient identification number and proof of insurance coverage. She's dying, Doyen shouted at the device. Insurance verification is required before emergency services can be dispatched. Standard emergency intervention costs 45,000 credits. Please confirm payment authorization. Doyen's face went dark with anger. He looked at the device like he wanted to smash it against the wall. Then he looked at Telvin's mother. Then at Telvin. Okay, Doyen said quietly. Okay, then we do this ourselves. He started moving around the small room, looking at everything.
The walls.
The ceiling. The environmental control panel near the door. Telvin watched in confusion as Doyen pulled out a small tool from his belt and started working on the panel. What are you doing? Telvin asked. Your mother's species needs more oxygen than humans do, right? Doyen didn't stop working as he talked. This station probably runs on standard atmosphere mix. Not enough for her. If she's been exposed to low oxygen for too long, her body is shutting down. Sparks flew from the panel as Doyen pulled off the cover. He started pulling wires and rerouting connections. The device in his pocket started beeping with warnings. Warning. Unauthorized modification of environmental systems is a violation of Station Code 773. Cease immediately or security will be notified. Let them come, Doyen muttered. His fingers moved fast, connecting different colored wires. Come on. Come on. There was a soft hissing sound. The air in the room started to feel different. Thicker somehow. Richer. Telvin took a deep breath and felt his head clear in a way it hadn't in days. Doyen crawled back to Telvin's mother. He lifted her head gently and positioned her so she could breathe better. Come on, he whispered. Come on, breathe, breathe. Seconds passed like hours. Telvin held his breath without meaning to. Then his mother's chest moved. A deeper breath than before. Then another. The terrible gray color of her skin started to fade just a little. Just enough to give hope. Is she? Telvin couldn't finish the question. She's stable, Doyen said. For now. But she needs real medical help. This is just buying time. Heavy footsteps sounded in the corridor outside. The door slid open and 2 security officers stepped inside. The same orange-scaled officer from before and another one with too many tentacles. You are in violation of station environmental codes, the tentacled officer said. You must cease this activity immediately and submit to arrest. Doyen looked up at them. He was still kneeling beside Telvin's mother, one hand on her shoulder. This woman is dying. The station's medical system won't help her because she can't pay. I'm not letting her die because of paperwork. The regulations are clear, the orange officer said. Medical services require proper authorization. What you're doing is illegal. Then arrest me after I save her life. The two officers looked at each other. The supervisor arrived 10 minutes later. His name was Dr. Vexel, and he was one of the Kragathi people. His body was covered in crystal-like plates that clicked when he moved. He was the chief medical officer of the entire station, and he was not happy. "What is going on here?" His voice sounded like rocks grinding together. The tentacled security officer started explaining, but Dr. Vexel held up one crystalline hand for silence. He walked into the small room and looked at the scene. Telvin's mother on the floor, the human standing guard, the opened environmental panel with wires hanging loose, Telvin himself, small and scared in the corner. Dr. Vexel pulled out a medical scanner and ran it over Telvin's mother without asking permission. His crystal face was hard to read, but something in his posture changed as he looked at the results. "Varath syndrome," he said quietly. "Early-stage organ cascade failure. Another 30 minutes without treatment and she would have been beyond saving. Can you help her?" Doyen asked. His voice was rough with exhaustion. Dr. Vexil looked at the human for a long moment. "The standard treatment requires specialized enzyme therapy. The cost is approximately 200,000 credits. Does she have insurance coverage for this?" Telvin felt his heart sink. His mother worked hard, but they lived level to level. There was no way they had that kind of money. He opened his mouth to say so, but Doyun spoke first. "Is there another way? Something that costs less?" "There is an old treatment," Dr. Vexel said slowly. "Traditional Vorath medicine, before modern therapies were developed. It requires 3 rare biological compounds that must be gathered and synthesized within 4 hours. But it's not approved by current station medical protocols. The success rate is uncertain, but it could work." Doyen pressed. "Possibly. I have never performed it myself. The compounds are dangerous to collect. They're kept in the restricted xenobotanical gardens. You would need level 7 clearance to access them." "I'll get them." Everyone in the room turned to stare at Doyen. Even Telvin couldn't believe what he was hearing. Dr. Vexel's crystals clicked in what might have been laughter. "You? You're a cargo handler. You have level 2 clearance at most. You would be arrested the moment you tried to enter the gardens." "Tell me what I need to get," Doyen said. He wasn't asking. He was demanding. Dr. Vexel studied the human. Something in his expression shifted. Maybe it was respect. Maybe it was curiosity. "You would risk imprisonment for this woman? Someone you don't even know? Just tell me what to get." Dr. Vexel was quiet for a moment. Then he pulled out a data pad and started typing. 3 compounds. First, luminescent spores from a Drellian fungus. It's carnivorous, so be careful. Second, crystallized sap from a thermal willow. It grows in high-temperature zones. Third, pollen from the midnight bloom. It only opens in complete darkness. He held out the data pad to Doyen. "The specifications for each compound are here, but I must warn you, 2 of these compounds are toxic to human biology. You'll need protective equipment, and even with protection, the collection process is extremely dangerous." Doyen took the data pad. He glanced at the information, then nodded. 4 hours, you said? 3.5 now. And that's assuming I can synthesize them correctly, which is far from guaranteed. Then I better get moving. Doyen turned to leave, then stopped. He looked at Telvin. "Stay with your mother. I'll be back, but you'll get in trouble," Telvin said. His voice was shaking. Doyen smiled. It was tired and sad, but genuine. "I've been in trouble before. I'll be fine." "Why are you doing this?" Telvin had to ask. He had to understand. Doyen crouched down so they were eye to eye again. "Because you asked for help. That should have been enough for everyone. It was enough for me." Then he was gone, running down the corridor. The security officers moved to follow him, but Dr. Vexel held up a hand. "Let him go." "But sir, he's about to commit multiple violations. I know exactly what he's about to do." Dr. Vexel's voice was sharp, "And I want to see if he can actually pull it off. In the meantime, I need to prepare the synthesis equipment, and I need to study these old medical texts to remember how this procedure even works." He looked at the 2 officers. "You 2, help me move this woman to a proper medical bay. Carefully. Very carefully." They lifted Telvin's mother onto a floating stretcher. Dr. Vexel adjusted the oxygen levels carefully, watching her vital signs on his scanner. "You," he said to Telvin, "come with us. You should be with your mother." Telvin followed the group through the corridors. Other beings stared as they passed. A Vorath woman being rushed to medical care was unusual enough. The chief medical officer personally handling the case was even stranger. The medical bay was bright and clean. It smelled like chemicals Telvin couldn't name. They placed his mother on a proper medical bed, and machines started connecting to her automatically. Monitors beeped and displayed information in languages Telvin couldn't read. Dr. Vexel worked quickly, stabilizing her condition as much as he could. "She's holding for now," he said, "but the Varith syndrome will continue progressing. When the cascade reaches her central nervous system, there will be nothing I can do." "Will the human make it back in time?" Telvin asked. "I don't know." Dr. Vexel pulled up old files on his computer, reading through ancient medical procedures. "Even if he gets the compounds, even if I synthesize them correctly, there's still only a 60% chance of success. Maybe less, but there's a chance?" "Yes, there's a chance." Telvin sat in a chair beside his mother's bed and took her hand. It felt cold. Her blue skin was still too dark, still the wrong shade. But she was breathing. She was alive. "Thank you," Telvin said quietly to Dr. Vexel. "For helping." The doctor paused in his reading. "Don't thank me yet. I haven't done anything. You're trying. That's more than anyone else did." Dr. Vexel didn't respond. He just went back to his research, his crystalline fingers clicking against the keyboard. But Telvin thought he saw something soften in the doctor's posture. Something almost guilty. Time passed slowly. Telvin watched the monitors, not understanding what they meant but memorizing the patterns anyway. He watched his mother's chest rise and fall. He held her hand and tried not to cry. Somewhere in the station, Doyen was risking his life for them. A complete stranger. A human who had every reason to walk past them like everyone else had done. But he hadn't. He had stopped. He had listened. He had acted. Telvin had heard stories about humans. Everyone had. They were a relatively new species in the galactic community, only making contact about 50 years ago. Some called them reckless. Others called them dangerous. They had strange ideas about honor and justice that didn't always make sense to other species. But right now, Telvin understood something about humans that no story had ever taught him. They cared, even when it was stupid to care, even when it cost them everything. They cared anyway. The medical bay doors opened. A woman walked in wearing a botanist's uniform. She was human too, with long black hair pulled back in a practical bun. She went straight to Dr. Vexel. "I heard what's happening," she said in rapid trade language. "The human trying to get into the gardens. His name is Doyen? How did you hear about this?" Dr. Vexel demanded. "Word travels fast on the lower decks. We take care of our own down there." She pulled out an access card. "This is my level 7 clearance. I'm Lee Bora, xenobotanist. I work in those gardens every day. If Doyen is really going in there, he'll need proper equipment and guidance. You would risk your career for this?" Bora's expression was hard. Humans have to look out for each other out here. But more than that, we have to look out for those who can't look out for themselves. Isn't that what doctors are supposed to do too? Dr. Vexel's crystals clicked in what might have been a laugh or might have been annoyance. "You humans and your idealism. You'll all end up in detention. Maybe. But at least we'll end up there knowing we tried." Bora left as quickly as she had come. Dr. Vexel watched her go, then looked at Telvin. "Your species has a saying, doesn't it? About the fire that burns twice as bright." Telvin nodded. It was an old Vorith proverb. The fire that burns twice as bright burns half as long. Humans are like that, Dr. Vexel said quietly. They burn so bright, so fierce. They'll burn themselves out trying to save everyone. It's admirable and terrifying. He went back to his research. Telvin went back to holding his mother's hand. All they could do now was wait. Wait and hope that Doyen's fire would burn bright enough and long enough to save her. The monitor beside the bed beeped softly, counting down the time they had left. 3 hours and 12 minutes. The xenobotanical gardens were located on the upper levels of the station, far from the industrial cargo bays where Doyen normally worked. He had never been up here before. The corridors were cleaner. The lighting was better. Even the air smelled different, filtered and perfumed. He found the main entrance to the gardens blocked by a security checkpoint. 2 guards stood at the door, both of them the tall gray-skinned species with too many arms. They looked bored until Doyen approached. "Restricted area," one of them said. "Level 7 clearance required." Doyen was about to try something stupid when he heard a voice behind him. There you are. I've been looking everywhere for you. It was the human woman from the medical bay, Bora. She walked up beside Doyen and waved her clearance card at the guards. He's with me. New assistant. I'm training him on proper collection procedures. The guards looked skeptical. One of them scanned Bora's card, then looked at Doyen. He needs to register as a temporary assistant. That requires filing Form 47B and waiting for approval. Oh, Bora sighed dramatically. Look, we have a time-sensitive collection happening right now. Midnight bloom pollen. You know what happens if we miss the bloom cycle? That's not my concern. It'll be your concern when Administrator Kren finds out his wife's medication wasn't ready, because you held up a routine collection over paperwork. Bora's voice was sweet, but her eyes were steel. Now we can stand here arguing, or you can let us through so we can do our jobs. Your choice. The guards looked at each other. Finally, one of them waved them through. Make it quick. Bora grabbed Doyen's arm and pulled him through the entrance before they could change their minds. As soon as they were out of earshot, she released him. Thank you, Doyen said. Don't thank me yet. I got you in, but now you actually have to collect these things. Have you ever worked with dangerous plants before? I've hauled cargo containers with dangerous plants inside them. Does that count? Not even close. Bora pulled out an equipment locker and started pulling out protective gear. Gloves, masks, collection containers. Here, put these on. And whatever you do, don't touch anything with your bare skin. Doyen suited up quickly. The protective gear felt strange, too tight in some places and too loose in others. Bora handed him the datapad Dr. Vexel had given him. First one is the Drellian fungus, right? That's in Sector 7. Follow me and stay close. The gardens were massive. They stretched across 3 decks connected by open atriums. Plants from 1,000 worlds grew here, each in carefully controlled environments. Some areas were hot enough to make Doyen sweat through his suit. Others were so cold his breath fogged. Some zones had gravity adjusted higher or lower than standard. Bora moved through it all with practiced ease, but Doyen struggled to keep up. His body ached from the long cargo shift. The protective suit made everything harder, but he pushed through the exhaustion. 3 hours left. Maybe less. They reached Sector 7. The lighting here was dim and reddish. The air was thick with moisture that clung to everything. Strange sounds echoed through the dense foliage. Clicks and whispers and things Doyen didn't want to think about. There. Bora pointed at a massive growth along the wall. It looked like a normal mushroom, if normal mushrooms were 6 feet tall and glowed with sickly green light. Drellian fungus. The spores you need are in those pods hanging underneath the cap. You said it was carnivorous? Very. It uses its tendrils to grab anything that gets too close. Then it injects digestive enzymes and absorbs the nutrients. Don't let it grab you. Helpful advice. Doyen approached carefully. The fungus seemed to sense him. The tendrils underneath its cap started moving, waving slowly back and forth like underwater plants. He could see the spore pods now, each one about the size of his fist, glowing with that same green light. He reached out with the collection tool Bora had given him. The moment it touched the closest pod, the tendrils snapped into motion. They were fast, much faster than they had looked. One wrapped around Doyen's arm and squeezed. He felt the pressure even through the protective suit. Cut it, Bora shouted. Use the blade on your tool. Doyen activated the cutting edge and sliced through the tendril. It fell away, but 2 more shot out to replace it. He grabbed the spore pod and pulled hard, ripping it free from the cap. The fungus made a sound like a scream, high and piercing. More tendrils lashed out. Doyen stumbled backward, cradling the pod. One tendril caught his leg and pulled. He went down hard, hitting the ground with his shoulder. The pod almost flew from his hands, but he held on. Bora was there in seconds, spraying something from a can that made the tendril shrivel and release. Got it, Doyen gasped. He sealed the spore pod in the containment box. One down. You're bleeding. Doyen looked at his arm. The suit had torn where the tendril grabbed him. Blood was seeping through, mixing with some kind of digestive slime from the fungus. It burned like fire. I'm fine. Where's the next one? Bora looked at him like he was crazy. You need medical attention. I need to get these compounds. 2 hours and 40 minutes left. Where's the thermal willow? Bora pressed her lips into a thin line, then nodded. Sector 12. The hot zone. They ran through the gardens. Doyen's arm throbbed with every step, but he ignored it. The hot zone was exactly what it sounded like. The temperature jumped to over 200 degrees. Even with the protective suit, Doyen felt like he was standing in an oven. The thermal willows grew here, tall trees with bark that glowed red like heated metal. Their branches dripped with crystallized sap that sparkled in the intense light. You need to collect from the trunk, Bora explained. The sap is semi-solid at this temperature. But be careful. It's still hot enough to cause severe burns if it touches skin. Doyen approached the nearest tree. The heat was intense, making it hard to breathe. He could feel sweat pouring down his back, soaking his shirt under the suit. He reached out with the collection tool and scraped at the trunk. The crystallized sap came away in chunks. Beautiful glowing pieces that looked like amber. He caught them in the containment box, being careful not to touch them directly. One piece fell and hit his hand through a gap in the glove. The pain was instant and terrible. He bit back a scream and kept working. Enough! Bora grabbed his shoulder. You have enough. We need to go. Doyen looked at his hand. The skin was bright red, already blistering. One more to go. You're in no condition. One more. He started moving toward the exit. Where's the midnight bloom? Bora guided him to Sector 19. By now, word had spread through the gardens. Other botanists and workers were watching them pass. Some looked curious. Others looked angry. Everyone knew something unusual was happening. Security was probably on the way. They didn't have much time. Sector 19 was pitch black. Not dim, not shadowy. Completely, utterly dark. The midnight bloom only opened in absolute darkness, and any light would cause it to close up for hours. I can't see anything, Doyen said. There's a night vision setting on your mask. Here. Bora adjusted something on the side of his helmet. Suddenly the world was visible again, everything in shades of green. The midnight bloom grew in the center of the sector. It was huge, its petals spread wide like hands reaching upward. In the night vision it glowed with an eerie beauty. The pollen Doyen needed was visible as a thick coating on the flower's center. The pollen has hallucinogenic properties, Bora warned. If you breathe it in, you'll start seeing things that aren't there. Your mask should filter it, but be careful and work fast. This flower releases defensive spores when disturbed. Doyen approached the bloom. His vision was starting to blur at the edges, probably from the pain and exhaustion catching up with him. Or maybe from the toxins he'd already been exposed to. He couldn't tell anymore. He reached into the flower's center with the collection tool. The pollen came away easily, sticking to the collection surface like fine dust. He had almost finished when the flower suddenly shuddered. The petals began to close. Doyen jerked his arm back, but not fast enough. The petals caught his forearm, squeezing tight. He pulled hard, and the petals tore, releasing a cloud of spores directly into his face. His mask filtered most of it, but some got through the crack where it had been damaged earlier. Doyen stumbled backward, coughing. The world started to shift and spin. Colors appeared in the darkness, impossible colors he had no names for. Doyen. Bora's voice sounded far away. Stay with me. He tried to respond, but his tongue felt thick. The pollen container. Had he sealed it? He looked down at his hands. They seemed to have too many fingers. Or not enough. He couldn't tell. Focus. He had to focus. There was something important. Something he needed to remember. A small blue face crying, asking for help. Telvin. Doyen forced his eyes to focus. The container was in his hand. He managed to seal it properly. 3 compounds. He had all 3. We need to go, he said. His voice sounded strange to his own ears. Medical Bay, Dr. Vexil. Bora supported him as they moved through the gardens. Doyen's vision kept swimming. Sometimes he saw his sister's face in the plants around him. She was young again, smiling like she used to before the war, before the refugee camp, before the bureaucrats let her die while processing paperwork. I'm sorry, he whispered. Not sure if he was talking to his sister or to Bora or to someone else entirely. Save it for later, Bora said firmly. We're almost out. Security was waiting at the entrance. A lot of security. But there was someone else there. Telvin watched the human sleep on the medical bed across the room. Doyen's face was pale and covered in sweat. Bandages wrapped around his arms and hands. Machines beeped softly, monitoring his condition. Is he going to die? Telvin asked quietly. The other human, Bora, sat beside him. She shook her head. No, he's tough. He'll recover. He got hurt because of us. He got hurt because he chose to help. There's a difference, Bora smiled sadly. That's just what humans do sometimes. We see someone who needs help and we can't help ourselves. We have to try, even if it's stupid. It's not stupid, Telvin said firmly. It's brave. On the other side of the medical bay, Dr. Vexel worked at the synthesis station. The 3 compounds Doyen had collected were laid out on the work surface. The doctor had pulled up ancient Vorath medical texts on multiple screens around him, comparing notes and measurements. This is absurd, Dr. Vexel muttered to himself. I'm a modern physician. I use advanced technology and proven treatments. Now I'm mixing plants together like some kind of medieval healer. But his hands moved with precision as he worked. He measured exact amounts of each compound, the spore dust from the Drellian fungus, the crystallized sap from the thermal willow, the pollen from the midnight bloom. Another human had arrived, an older woman with gray streaks in her black hair. Dr. Vexel, I'm Choi Mina, linguistic specialist. I heard you needed help translating ancient Vorath texts. Dr. Vexel looked up in surprise. How did you know about this? Word spreads fast on the lower decks. Mina moved to look at the screens. This is old Vorath language, pre-contact era. I did my doctoral thesis on historical Vorath literature. I can help. I don't understand, Dr. Vexel said slowly. Why are all these humans helping? You don't know this woman. You don't even know her species that well. Mina smiled. Because one of us started helping. And when humans see one of our own doing something good, we want to help too. It's just how we are. She started reading the ancient texts aloud, translating them into trade language. The instructions were complex, full of warnings and precise measurements. One mistake could make the compound useless. Or poisonous. Dr. Vexel listened carefully. His crystalline fingers moved over the synthesis equipment, adjusting temperatures and pressures. The compounds began to combine in the reaction chamber, swirling together in complex patterns. The temperature is rising too fast, Dr. Vexel said. The ancient text says it must stay below 47 degrees, but the equipment is designed for modern synthesis. It runs hot. Can you override it? Mina asked. Not without risking damage to the entire system. Dr. Vexel's voice was frustrated. I need external cooling, but that's not standard equipment for this type of synthesis. The door opened again. A being Telvin didn't recognize entered, carrying what looked like a portable cooling unit. He was tall and thin, with green skin and large eyes. One of the Stilvan engineers who worked in the station's maintenance department. Heard you needed cooling equipment, the engineer said in heavily accented trade language. I brought this from the cargo bay refrigeration systems. Will it work? Dr. Vexel stared at the equipment. How did you even know? Everyone knows what's happening here. The human who broke all the rules to save someone. The doctor trying to make an impossible treatment work. Word spreads. The engineer set up the cooling unit. We're all watching. We all want to see if you succeed. More beings started arriving, not to help directly but to watch, to bear witness. Kragathi merchants, Orinthian security officers, Vorath families, even some of the same beings who had ignored Telvin's cries for help earlier. They filled the corridor outside the medical bay, silent and waiting. Dr. Vexel worked for 2 hours straight. Mina translated instructions. The engineer monitored the cooling systems. Park Ji-hoon kept security from shutting the whole thing down. Bora managed the crowd, keeping everyone calm and quiet. The synthesis chamber glowed with strange colors as the compounds mixed. Telvin watched every step, not understanding the science but understanding the importance. Finally, Dr. Vexel stepped back. In the chamber was a small vial of liquid. It was deep purple, almost black, and it seemed to shimmer with its own light. It's done, Dr. Vexel said. His voice was tired. Now we'll see if it actually works. He loaded the compound into an injection device. Then he walked to Telvin's mother's bed. Her skin was darker than ever now, almost gray. Her breathing had become shallow and irregular. The monitors showed her vital signs dropping. This might not work, Dr. Vexel said honestly. The success rate for this treatment, even in ancient times, was never higher than 60%. And I've never performed it before. You should understand that. But there's a chance? Telvin asked. Yes, there's a chance. Then do it, please. Dr. Vexel positioned the injection device against Telvin's mother's neck. He hesitated for just a moment, his crystalline hand shaking slightly. Then he pressed the trigger. The purple liquid flowed into her body. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Telvin's mother's entire body convulsed. The monitors started screaming alarms. Her vital signs plummeted. What's happening? Telvin screamed. Her body is fighting the compound, Dr. Vexel said. His hands moved over the controls, trying to stabilize her. This is normal, expected, but it looks bad. Make it stop. If I stop now, she'll die for certain. The treatment has to complete. Dr. Vexel's voice was calm but intense. Come on, fight. Your son needs you, fight. The convulsions continued. 30 seconds, a minute. Telvin couldn't watch but couldn't look away. He felt Bora's hand on his shoulder, steadying him. Then slowly the convulsions stopped. The alarms on the monitors began to quiet. The lines showing her vital signs stopped falling. Stopped, held steady. Then began to rise. The terrible gray color of his mother's skin started to fade. Blue returned, spreading from her chest outward. Her breathing deepened, strengthened. Dr. Vexel checked his medical scanner. His crystalline body seemed to sag with relief. It's working. The compound is working. The cascade is stopped. Her organs are stabilizing. Is she... Telvin couldn't finish the question. She's going to survive. Dr. Vexel looked at Telvin with something like wonder in his eyes. I can't believe it, but she's actually going to survive. A sound came from the corridor outside. At first, Telvin thought it was someone crying. Then he realized it was cheering. All those beings who had gathered to watch were celebrating. Different species making different sounds, but all expressing the same emotion. Joy, relief, hope. Telvin burst into tears. He couldn't help it. His mother was alive. She was going to be okay. The nightmare was over. Bora hugged him tight. See? Told you Doyen would pull through. Humans are stubborn like that. I need to thank him, Telvin said. I need to tell him... He's still unconscious, Dr. Vexel said gently. The toxins he was exposed to require time to clear his system. But he'll wake up soon, and when he does, I'm sure he'll be happy to hear the good news. Telvin went to his mother's bedside. He took her hand, and this time it felt warm, alive. He pressed his face against her arm and let himself cry properly. All the fear and terror of the day came out in great heaving sobs. His mother's hand twitched. Her fingers squeezed his just a little. Still unconscious, but some part of her knew he was there. Knew she was safe. Thank you, Telvin whispered to everyone in the room. To Dr. Vexel, who had performed the synthesis. To Mina, who had translated. To the engineer who had brought the cooling equipment. To Bora, who had helped Doyen. To Jihoon, who had protected them from security. But most of all to Doyen, the human who had stopped when everyone else walked by. The human who had risked everything for strangers. Dr. Vexel cleared his throat. The crowd outside is getting larger. I should probably make some kind of announcement. He walked to the medical bay doors and opened them. The corridor was packed with beings. Hundreds of them now, all waiting to hear if the treatment had worked. The patient is stable, Dr. Vexel announced. His voice echoed through the corridor. The treatment was successful. She will recover fully. The cheering was even louder this time. Telvin could hear it echoing through the entire level of the station. Good news spreading like fire through dry grass. But Dr. Vexel wasn't done speaking. He held up his hand for silence, and slowly the crowd quieted. What happened here today should never have been necessary, he said. His voice was hard now, angry. A child asked for help. A woman was dying. And our systems, our rules, our protocols made it impossible to save her through proper channels. The crowd shifted uncomfortably. Some of the officials and administrators in the group looked nervous. It took a human, Dr. Vexel continued, an off-duty cargo worker with no medical training and no authority, to do what all of us should have done immediately. He broke countless rules to save a life, and he nearly died doing it. Dr. Vexel's crystalline body seemed to shine brighter as his emotion grew. This station is built on rules and regulations, and those things are important. But today I learned something. Today I was reminded of something I forgot somewhere along my career. He paused. The entire corridor held its breath. Rules exist to protect life, not to prevent us from saving it. When our rules get in the way of saving a dying woman, then our rules are wrong, not the person who breaks them. Someone in the crowd started clapping. Then Ndoyen woke up to bright lights and the smell of antiseptic. His entire body ached like he'd been run over by a cargo hauler, which, considering how he felt, might have actually been preferable to what he'd actually done. Welcome back, a voice said. Dr. Vexel stood beside the bed, checking monitors. You've been unconscious for 18 hours. How do you feel? Like I fought a plant and lost, Doyen croaked. His throat was dry, not entirely inaccurate. Dr. Vexel helped him sit up and offered water. Doyen drank gratefully. You suffered chemical burns, multiple toxic exposures, and mild hallucinogenic poisoning. Also 3 pulled muscles and a sprained ankle. I'm fairly certain you didn't even notice at the time. The woman, Telvin's mother. Did it work? Dr. Vexel's crystal face cracked into something that might have been a smile. Yes, the treatment worked. She's recovering well. Relief flooded through Doyen, so intense it almost hurt. Can I see her? She's sleeping. But there's someone else who's been waiting to see you since you arrived. The doctor stepped aside. Telvin was sitting in a chair in the corner of the room. The boy had been so quiet Doyen hadn't even noticed him. The moment their eyes met, Telvin jumped up and ran to the bedside. You're awake. You're okay. Telvin's voice was high with emotion. Hey, kid. Told you I'd be fine. Doyen tried to smile, though his face hurt. Your mom's going to be okay, too. That's the important part. She woke up this morning, Telvin said. The words tumbled out fast. Just for a few minutes, Dr. Vexel said she needs rest, but she's going to be completely better. And it's because of you. You saved her. You saved my mama. Tears were streaming down Telvin's blue face. Before Doyen could say anything, the boy threw his arms around him in a fierce hug. Doyen winced as his injuries protested, but he hugged back gently. You're a hero, Telvin said, his voice muffled against Doyen's shoulder. You're my hero. I'm not a hero. I just did what anyone should do, but you're the only one who did. Telvin pulled back, looking at Doyen with eyes that were far too old for his young face. Everyone else walked past. Everyone else said no. You said yes. Doyen didn't know what to say to that. He looked at Dr. Vexel for help, but the doctor was deliberately looking away, giving them privacy. I'm just glad she's okay, Doyen finally said. That's all that matters. The door opened and several people entered. Park Ji-hoon still in his security uniform. Lee Bora carrying what looked like clean clothes. Choi Mina smiling warmly. And others too. The Stilvan engineer. A few Vorath families. Some Kragathi merchants. Word got out that you were awake, Ji-hoon explained. Everyone wanted to check on you. I'm fine, really, just sore. Sore? Bora laughed. You nearly died collecting toxic plants. Sore is an understatement. It was worth it. Doyen meant it. Looking at Telvin's grateful face, seeing the relief and joy there, it had absolutely been worth it. Then the door opened again, and the mood in the room changed. Administrator Kren entered, flanked by 2 security officers. The Kragathi official looked severe, his crystal body rigid with formal authority. Kang Doyen, Kren's voice was flat and cold. You are hereby charged with the following violations. Unauthorized entry to restricted areas, tampering with environmental controls, theft of biological materials, violation of safety protocols, and conspiracy to circumvent station medical regulations. The room went silent. Telvin grabbed Doyen's hand, his small fingers squeezing tight. The cumulative fines for these violations total 500,000 credits, Kren continued. Additionally, you face potential detention of up to 6 months. How do you plead? Doyen looked at Telvin, at the boy's terrified expression, at his mother sleeping peacefully in a bed across the room. He looked at all the people who had gathered to support him. Then he looked back at Administrator Kren. Guilty, Doyen said calmly. I did everything you said. I broke every rule. I'd do it again. You understand the penalties, I understand perfectly. But I'm not going to pretend I'm sorry. That woman needed help. Her son needed help. Your system failed them. So I did what I had to do. Kren's expression didn't change. The law is the law. Then your law is wrong. The room erupted. Everyone started shouting at once, protesting the charges. Telvin was crying. Bora was arguing with the security officers. Ji-hoon was trying to cite some regulation or another. Dr. Vexel's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. Administrator Kren. Everyone fell silent. Dr. Vexel walked forward until he stood directly in front of Kren. If you charge him, you charge me as well, Dr. Vexel said. I ordered the synthesis of an unauthorized treatment. I used station equipment without proper authorization. I endangered a patient with an experimental procedure. That's different. And me. Bora stepped forward. I gave him access to restricted areas. I provided equipment without filing proper forms. And me, Ji-hoon said. I provided security overrides. I actively prevented other officers from stopping him. Me too, Mina added. I assisted in translating ancient texts for an unauthorized medical procedure. The Stilvan engineer spoke up in his heavily accented trade language. I provided equipment for the synthesis. Charge me as well. One by one, every person in the room came forward, claiming responsibility, accepting guilt, standing with Doyen. Even some of the beings watching from the corridor pushed inside. We watched and didn't report it. That makes us accessories. Administrator Kren looked around the room at the dozens of beings all confessing to various violations. His crystal face was impossible to read, but Doyen thought he saw something shift in the official's posture. You can't charge all of us, Jihoon said quietly, even if you wanted to. The detention facilities aren't big enough. The fines would bankrupt half the lower decks. And the publicity, Bora picked up the thread, would be very bad for the station. The story of how Station Nexus 7 punished people for saving a life. That story is already spreading across the sector. Other stations are hearing about it. Human ships are definitely hearing about it. Are you threatening me? Kren's voice was dangerous. No, Doyen said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. They're just telling you the truth. You can punish me. I broke the rules. I accept that. But don't punish them. They were just trying to help. Everyone was just trying to help, Kren said. He sounded tired suddenly. That's the problem, isn't it? Our entire system is built to prevent help unless it goes through proper channels. And those channels failed. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he tapped something on his data pad. The charges are dismissed. All of them. Shock rippled through the room. Telvin gasped. Bora's mouth fell open. However, Kren continued, his voice gaining strength. This incident has revealed severe flaws in our emergency response protocols. Dr. Vexel has submitted recommendations for a complete overhaul of the medical system. I'm approving them. Effective immediately. He looked at Doyen. What you did was reckless, dangerous, and completely against regulations. It should never have been necessary. That's our failure, not yours. Kren turned to address everyone in the room. From this moment forward, no being on this station will be denied life-saving emergency care due to financial constraints. Treatment first. Payment arrangements later. We'll establish a charity fund for those who cannot pay. We'll simplify emergency response procedures. And we'll remember what we're supposed to be doing here. Which is, someone asked from the crowd, protecting life. All life. Isn't that supposed to be the point of civilization? The room erupted in cheers. Telvin hugged Doyen so hard it hurt his injuries, but Doyen didn't care. Around them, beings from different species were embracing, celebrating. Something had changed. Something fundamental. Kren started to leave, then paused at the door. He looked back at Doyen. What you did will be remembered. The protocols we're implementing will be called the Nexus 7 Standard, but among those of us who were here, among those who witnessed it, we'll always call it something else. What? Doyen asked. The Doyen Clause. The principle that compassion comes before protocol, that life matters more than paperwork, that sometimes the right thing to do is to break every rule and face the consequences later. Kren nodded once, a gesture of respect, then left. The security officers went with him, looking relieved they didn't have to arrest anyone. The room slowly emptied as people returned to their lives, but they left different than they'd entered. Something had shifted in how they saw the world, in how they saw each other. Finally, it was just Doyen, Telvin, and Dr. Vexel in the medical bay. Telvin's mother still slept peacefully across the room, her breathing steady and strong. You need more rest, Dr. Vexel said to Doyen. At least another day before I can discharge you. I'm fine to work. I've got cargo shifts. Your supervisor has been notified you're on medical leave. Don't worry about your job. Between the publicity and the number of people who support you, I don't think you'll have any employment problems. Doyen lay back on the bed. He was tired, so tired, but it was a good tired, the kind that came from doing something that mattered. Can I stay with him? Telvin asked Dr. Vexel. I want to be here when my mama wakes up for real, and I want to be here if Doyen needs anything. I suppose that's acceptable, but you need to rest too. You've been awake for over 30 hours. Dr. Vexel pulled a second bed close to Doyen's. Telvin climbed up and settled in. Within minutes, the 2 days later, Telvin's mother was finally awake and recovering. Her name was Myra, and she was sitting up in bed when Doyen was finally allowed to visit her properly. Telvin sat beside her, holding her hand like he was afraid she might disappear if he let go. Telvin has told me everything you did, Myra said. Her voice was soft but strong. How you stopped when no one else would. How you risked your life for mine. How you fought the entire station to save me. I just did what needed doing, Doyen said. He felt awkward under her intense gaze. You saved my life. You saved my son's mother. There are no words in any language sufficient to thank you for that. Before Doyen could respond, Myra reached out and took his hand. She pressed it against her forehead in a gesture he didn't recognize but understood was deeply significant. Tears ran down her blue face. In Vorath culture, she said, when someone saves your life, they become part of your family. Not by blood, but by bond. You are my brother now, Telvin's uncle. Our family is your family for as long as you live. Doyen felt something tight in his chest loosen. Family. He hadn't had family in so long. Not since his sister died. Not since the war scattered everyone he cared about. I'd be honored, he said quietly. Telvin bounced excitedly on the bed. Does this mean you'll teach me about Earth? About humans? About how to be brave like you? I can teach you about Earth and humans. But bravery isn't something you learn. It's something you choose. Then teach me how to choose it. Dr. Vexel entered the medical bay carrying a data pad. Sorry to interrupt, but there's been a development. Multiple developments, actually. He held up the pad, showing news reports from stations across the sector. All of them were covering the story. The human who defied an entire station to save a dying woman. New medical protocols, spread after dramatic rescue. The Doyen clause saves its first life on station. Kepler 9. What's that last one mean? Doyen asked. Station Kepler 9 has adopted our new emergency medical protocols. They're calling them the Nexus 7 standard. A child was injured in a cargo accident there yesterday. Under their old system, treatment would have been delayed while verifying insurance. Under the new system, they treated him immediately. He survived because of those few extra minutes. Dr. Vexel pulled up more reports. 15 stations have requested copies of our new protocols. 23 others are reviewing their own emergency response systems. Academic papers are being written about human psychology and decision-making under crisis conditions. Telvin's story is being taught in xenosociology classes as an example of cross-species compassion. Doyen felt overwhelmed. I didn't do this for publicity, I know. That's exactly why it matters so much. Dr. Vexil sat down. You acted without thinking about consequences. Without expecting reward. That purity of motive is what's inspiring beings across the sector. You reminded everyone of something we'd forgotten. Which is that we're all people. Different species, different biology, different cultures. But fundamentally, we all understand fear. We all understand love. We all understand the desperate cry of a child who needs help. You heard that cry and answered. You're showing everyone else that they can answer too. The door opened and Lee Bora entered, followed by Park Ji-hoon and Choi Mina. They all looked excited about something. You need to see this, Bora said. She pulled up a holographic display showing donation numbers. The charity fund Administrator Kren established for medical costs. It's already raised over 2 million credits. People are donating from all over the sector. Merchants are offering supplies at cost, Ji-hoon added. Medical equipment manufacturers are donating extra inventory. Doctors are volunteering their time. It's a movement, Mina said. You started a real movement, Doyen. People want to help. They just needed someone to show them how. Doyen looked at all of them, then at Myra and Telvin. I didn't do this alone. Every one of you helped. You broke rules too. You risked your jobs, your freedom. This isn't about me. But it started with you, Myra said gently, one person choosing to care. That's all it took to change everything. Over the next few days, more changes came. The lower deck communities organized a celebration in Doyun's honor. He tried to refuse, but they insisted. Hundreds of beings gathered in the main plaza, sharing food and stories from their different cultures. Telvin stayed close to Doyen the entire time, introducing him to everyone as my uncle who saved my mama. The pride in the boy's voice made Doyen's chest tight with emotion. A Kragathi merchant approached, the same one who had dismissed Telvin's pleas for help that first day. He looked ashamed. I should have helped, the merchant said quietly. When the boy asked for assistance, I turned away. I thought about protocols and regulations. I didn't think about the child who needed help. I'm sorry. You're here now, Doyen said. That matters. I've made a donation to the medical fund. A large one. It doesn't excuse what I didn't do, but perhaps it will help someone in the future. That's all any of us can do. Try to be better tomorrow than we were yesterday. The merchant nodded and moved away. He wasn't the only one. Throughout the celebration, beings approached Doyen to apologize for walking past Telvin that day, for ignoring his cries, for following rules instead of their conscience. Doyen forgave them all. What else could he do? They were trying now. They were changing. That was what mattered. Late in the evening, Administrator Kren appeared at the celebration. The crowd parted nervously as the official approached Doyen. I wanted to inform you personally, Kren said. The Nexus 7 standard has been officially adopted by the Galactic Station Council. All member stations are required to implement similar emergency medical protocols within 6 months. That's amazing. It's overdue. We should have done this decades ago. It took a human willing to break every rule to show us how wrong we were. Kren held out a datapad. I have another matter to discuss. We're establishing a new position. Emergency Response Coordinator. Someone who can cut through bureaucracy during crisis situations. Someone who understands that sometimes rules need to bend to save lives. I'd like to offer you the position. Doyen took the pad but shook his head. I appreciate it, but I'm a cargo handler. That's what I'm good at. Hauling boxes, fixing equipment, doing the work that needs doing. You could help more people in this position. I could help more people by being what I am, by being someone who does their job and helps when they see someone who needs it. If everyone does that, you won't need special coordinators. You'll just need people who care. Kren studied him for a long moment. You're refusing a promotion and a significant pay increase to remain a cargo handler? Yes, is that okay? Something that might have been respect flickered across Kren's face. It's more than okay. It's admirably human of you. He paused. Though I would appreciate if you'd consult on the new protocols. Your perspective would be valuable. I can do that. In my spare time. Kren nodded and left. Bor appeared at Doyen's side, laughing. You just turned down a job that would have tripled your salary and given you real authority. You really are crazy. Maybe, but I like my life. I like the lower decks. I like the people here. We take care of each other down here. That's worth more than any salary. Spoken like a true human. Bora raised her drink. To being crazy enough to care. The celebration continued late into the night. Music played from a dozen different cultures, creating a strange but beautiful harmony. Children of various species played together, including Telvin, who was teaching some human kids of Vorath. Doyen watched it all and felt something he hadn't felt in years. Peace. Contentment. Like he'd found where he was supposed to be. Myra joined him at the railing overlooking the plaza. She'd been released from medical care that morning, though Dr. Vexil had strict instructions for her recovery. You changed more than just our lives that day, she said quietly. You changed how this entire station operates, how hundreds of stations will operate, how thousands of beings will be treated in the future. I just wanted to help you. I know, but sometimes helping one person helps everyone. That's the beauty of compassion. It spreads, like light in darkness. My sister used to say something like that, Doyen said. The words came out before he could stop them. Before she died. She said kindness was contagious. If you were kind to someone, they'd be kind to someone else. She was right. She died because of bureaucracy, because officials were processing her paperwork while she was dying from preventable disease in a refugee camp. I couldn't save her. But I could save you. Myra took his hand. Your sister would be proud of you. Of what you did. Of what you've started. I hope so. They stood in comfortable silence watching the celebration below. Different species, different worlds, different cultures, all brought together by one simple truth. Life mattered. Every life. Every being. No matter who they were or where they came from. That night, when Doyen finally returned to his small quarters in the lower decks, he found a message waiting. It was from the Earth Merchant Marine Association. They'd heard about what he'd done. They wanted to honor him with a commendation for exemplifying human values in the galactic community. Doyen deleted the message. He didn't need commendations. Didn't need recognition. He just needed to know that Myra was alive. That Telvin's the cargo bay was hot and loud, filled with the sounds of machinery and workers shouting to each other in a dozen different languages. Doyen guided a massive container into position, his exosuit whining with the effort. It was hard work, but he liked it. Honest labor. No politics, no bureaucracy, just moving things from one place to another, keeping the station running. Doyun, a voice called from across the bay. Break time! He set down the container and deactivated the exosuit. His supervisor, a Kragathi named Torvik, waved him over. Doyen grabbed his water bottle and joined the other workers in the break area. 1 year today, Torvik said. Since the incident. Doyen nodded. He knew what day it was. How could he forget? Station's doing a memorial thing in the plaza, another worker said. A human woman named Kim Soo-jin who joined the cargo crew 6 months ago, celebrating the anniversary of the Doyen Clause. I wish they'd stop calling it that, Doyen muttered. Too late. It's official now. 16 sectors have adopted the Nexus 7 standard. The name stuck. Torvik pulled up statistics on his data pad. Estimated lives saved in the past year because of the new protocols. 347. That's just the ones we know about. 347 people. 347 families who didn't have to watch someone die because of paperwork. 347 children who still had their parents, or parents who still had their children. That's good, Doyen said quietly. Good, it's amazing. Soo-jin laughed. You're a legend, Doyen, accept it. I'm a cargo hauler who did what anyone should do. But you're the one who did it. Torvik's crystals clicked thoughtfully. That matters. You showed everyone it was possible. That the rules could be broken when they needed to be. That compassion was more important than protocol. The break ended and everyone returned to work. Doyen moved through his shift with practiced efficiency. Lift move stack secure, over and over. It was meditative in its repetition. It gave him time to think. A lot had changed in a year. Dr. Vexel had become famous in medical circles, publishing papers on integrating traditional medicine with modern protocols. Lee Bora had been promoted to head xenobotanist. Park Ji-hoon was training a new rapid response team for emergencies. Choi Mina was teaching a class on cross-cultural communication at the station's small university. And Telvin had grown. The boy was taller now, more confident. He visited Doyen at least 3 times a week, always full of stories about school and friends and everything he was learning. Myra had recovered completely and returned to her job, but she also volunteered with the Medical Charity Fund, helping other families navigate the new systems. They'd become his family, not by blood but by bond, just like Myra had said. Telvin called him uncle without hesitation now. Myra treated him like a brother. They shared meals together, celebrated holidays together, supported each other through difficulties. Doyen had been alone for so long. Now he wasn't. That was worth more than any commendation or recognition. His shift ended and he cleaned up, changing out of his work clothes into casual wear. He was heading toward his quarters when he heard a commotion from the plaza, screaming, but not the normal sounds of the busy station. This was different, panicked, afraid. Doyen's body reacted before his brain caught up. He was running toward the sound, pushing through the crowd. In the center of the plaza, a group of beings had gathered around something, someone. Doyen pushed through to the front. A small child lay on the ground, their parent kneeling beside them. The child was from a species Doyen didn't recognize, with purple skin and too many limbs. They weren't moving. What happened? Doyen asked. Fell from the upper level, someone said. Hit their head. Won't wake up. The parent was speaking frantically in a language Doyen didn't understand, but he understood terror, understood desperation. It was universal. Has anyone called medical services? Doyen asked. They're on the way. New protocols. They'll be here soon. Doyen knelt beside the child. He didn't know this species biology, didn't know what was normal or what was dangerous, but he knew basic first aid. He checked for breathing, for pulse, for obvious injuries. Stay back, a Kragathi security officer said, arriving on the scene. Let the medical team handle this. I'm just making sure they're stable until help arrives, Doyen said calmly. The officer nodded and moved to control the crowd, giving Doyen space to work. But as Doyen assessed the situation, he realized something. He wasn't the only one helping. A Stilvan engineer was already on the ground, using their knowledge of different species biology to check the child's vitals. A Vorath mother was comforting the terrified parent, translating medical questions. A young Kragathi merchant was directing people to clear space for the incoming medical team. Everyone was helping. No one was walking past. No one was ignoring the crisis. The medical team arrived in under 3 minutes. They had proper equipment, proper training, and most importantly, they moved immediately. No questions about insurance. No demands for authorization. They just started treatment right there in the plaza. Spinal trauma, one of the medics announced. But stabilized. We can transport safely. Good work keeping them immobile. The medic looked at Doyen, then at the other beings who had helped. All of you, good work. You probably saved this child's life. They lifted the child onto a floating stretcher and moved quickly toward the medical bay. The parent went with them, still terrified but now with hope visible on their alien features. The crowd began to disperse slowly. Doyen stood up, his knees sore from kneeling on the hard plaza floor. The Stilvan engineer approached him. "That was well done," the engineer said in broken trade language. "Quick thinking. Calm action. You helped too. I don't know that species biology. Your knowledge made the difference. We all helped. Like we should," the engineer walked away. Doyen looked around the plaza and saw something that filled him with quiet pride. People were talking to each other, beings from different species, discussing what had just happened, congratulating each other on responding so quickly, planning how they could respond even better next time. This was what he'd hoped for. Not that he would be a hero, but that everyone would be heroes. That helping would become normal, expected, automatic. "Uncle Doyen!" Telvin came running across the plaza, Myra following at a more dignified pace. The boy crashed into Doyen with a hug. "We saw what happened." "You helped again." "A lot of people helped, Telvin. That's the important part." Myra smiled at him. "He's right, you know. A year ago, people would have stood and watched until official help arrived. Today, everyone moved to assist. That's because of what you started. I didn't start anything. I just did what felt right. And now everyone else does what feels right too. That's the ripple effect. One person's compassion spreading outward." They walked together through the plaza. It was decorated for the anniversary celebration, though Doyen had been planning to avoid that. Banners in multiple languages proclaimed the Doyen Clause. Displays showed statistics on lives saved, testimonials from beings across the sector who had been helped by the new protocols. "Do we have to go to the ceremony?" Doyen asked. "Yes," Myra said firmly. "They want to honor you, let them. It's important. I don't need honors. It's not about you needing it. It's about them needing to express gratitude, to celebrate what changed, to remember why these protocols exist." Myra squeezed his arm. "Sometimes letting people thank you is a gift you give them, not something you receive." The ceremony was larger than Doyen expected. The main plaza was packed with thousands of beings. He recognized many faces from the lower decks. But there were also officials, administrators, doctors, and visitors from other stations. Administrator Kren stood on a raised platform waiting to speak. He gestured for Doyen to join him. Reluctantly, Doyen climbed the steps, feeling every eye in the plaza on him. "1 year ago," Kren began, his voice amplified across the plaza, "a child cried for help. His mother was dying. Our systems failed him. Our rules prevented the assistance he desperately needed." The crowd was silent, listening intently. One person heard that cry and answered. "A human cargo worker who risked everything to save a stranger. He broke our rules, violated our protocols, and in doing so he showed us that our rules were wrong." Kren turned to Doyen. "What Kang Doyen did that day changed more than one life. It changed how we think about emergency care, how we prioritize life over bureaucracy, how we choose compassion over protocol." He pulled up a holographic display showing a map of the sector. Colored lights indicated stations that had adopted the new protocols. Most of the map was lit up.
47 stations have implemented the Nexus 7 standard.
Hundreds more are in the process. In this past year, 347 lives have been saved because help arrived without delay. 347 beings who would have died while we processed paperwork. The crowd applauded. Doyen felt uncomfortable with the attention, but he stood still and let it happen. "Today we honor Kang Doyen," Kren continued, "but we also honor everyone who helped that day. Everyone who has helped since. Everyone who chooses to act when they see someone in need. This is what civilization should be, not perfect rules and efficient systems, but beings who care about each other enough to help, even when it's hard."